Mountain West Media Days rolls on here in Las Vegas. We're live at Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. We're having a blast here today. We got to talk with the players yesterday. We get the head coaches today, and we continue our run of talking to new first-year head coaches in the Mountain West. Jeff Choate from Nevada joins us now. Jesse Kurtz, I'm Bridget Howard. Coach, it's great to see you. We know you're no stranger to the Mountain West, but welcome in this capacity as head coach.
Appreciate it. It's great to be here. Exciting time, and yeah, you guys have had to do a lot of research with 7 new head coaches.
That is true.
Yeah,
We've been nerds the last couple of days. We've been nerds
Thank
looking
God
at
for
doing
the
all the
internet.
research, right?
Yep.
Well, Coach, you come to Nevada after coaching at Texas. What intrigued you about this role at Nevada?
Opportunity. You know, the last time that I was in this league, in fact, the last time that I was at Mackey Stadium was probably a high water mark for the program at the University of Nevada. They beat a really good Boise State team that night. And I just remember watching everybody rush the field and the passion and energy of that place. That was my lasting impression of Nevada football. And the way that community rallied around that program and the success that Coach Alt had there and the great players that had come through that place. And to know that it's been that way and it can be that way again. And there's a commitment and I think an alignment between President Sandoval and Stephanie Rimp, the athletic director, and myself in terms of what our vision is. And, you know, we're about, hey man, one thing about it, there's nowhere to go but up, and we're going to let it rip.
Nowhere to go but up. But to your point, this program, the fan base has tasted that. Reasonably, what are your expectations for how quickly you can get back to what your vision of success is?
Yeah, and I think that that's defined, I think, more by trajectory than it is wins and losses. How are we playing? How competitive are we? We definitely have a challenging schedule. And that's one of the great things about the Mountain West in general. I mean, whether you're playing the non-conference schedule that we're playing or you're going to have to go compete against a Boise State, a UNLV, Colorado State, and all the great programs in this league, that's important. And so I think we've got to microwave it. I know this, the old 18 to 24 months to adjust culture, that ain't going to work anymore.
No, it doesn't.
And so so that's what we've been focused on is I use the term microwaving it or launching. It's not a rebuild, it's a launch. And I think that there's a lot of people that have kind of bought into that. And ultimately, I do think this. I think we've got talent on our roster that nobody's aware of. I'm kind of looking at your notes and I'm like, yeah, okay, but you don't have that guy, you don't have that guy, you don't have that guy. And so we've under the radar, I think, put together a really competitive roster. And through that non-conference schedule, those first 5 games, we've got to find out who we are, what's our identity. We've got to improve week to week. And then when we get to the Mountain West, we're going to be a dangerous team because I'm not going to play the thing close to the vest. Like I said, when you're picked where we're picked in this league, that's a respect thing, in my opinion, and we're going to let it rip.
Well, that's why we have you here, by the way, is to expose who we should be looking forward to. So you're going to go ahead and tell us who the major players on your roster are. But when you talk about your experience and you've seen success at the highest of levels, deep in the FCS playoffs as a head coach at Montana State, deep in the college football playoff with Texas, and what you guys tasted a year ago in the national semis. What about those success stories have you taken to then use as you're using this term launch at Nevada?
Well, I think, every single step along the way you learn something, right? And whether it was going to the University of Washington, and after 3 years there, they're in the CFP. Texas, 3 years there, they're in the CFP. The time that I had at Boise in the early 2000s, building a program at Montana State. And I think that what I've learned is that what I do travels. My approach to recruiting, my approach to building a staff, my approach to relating to players, my approach to discipline, my approach to football travels, and it travels to the highest level of the game, and it worked. It worked at Chalice High School too back in the day, and so there's a lot of confidence I think that goes along with that, to know that, hey, I know every place is different. Nevada has its uniqueness, which is awesome, and we're going to embrace that uniqueness and that history and tradition, and we're going to put our spin on it, and we're going to put a product out there that the fan base can be really proud of.
Coach, Cortez and Henry told us yesterday that you and your speeches make them want to run through a wall. You're making us want to run through a wall, at least me right now. I love hearing this. It's so exciting just to hear, what you want to make happen here at Nevada. But a couple of the things I wanted to ask you about, because it is all about getting to know the players, creating that chemistry, making sure everyone's on the same page when it comes time for August. you had a night of champions earlier this summer, and I asked the guys about it, and they kind of gave us a little bit on it. What was that? Why was that so important for you? Can you give us some insight?
It's a little bit of chaos training.
Yeah.
That's kind of what football is a lot of times. And so I think that one of the things that, you know, I'm fortunate we have a gentleman by the name of Phil Kornichuk, who's retired military and has a company called Stonewater that I've engaged with since my days at Montana State. And he's pretty creative in terms of some of the things he comes up with in this chaos training, but it was really designed to put guys in leadership positions, identify how competitive they were going to be in environments that have nothing to do with football, and force them to make decisions under stress. And whether that was getting into the water or, you know, being on some crazy, you know, elliptical deal that they got to do or whatever the case may be, that was the purpose. And I think that you learn a lot about kids when you put them under those stressful environments. And I think these guys responded the right way. We did have a significant turnover on our roster after spring ball, but I think that's probably year one. And so a lot of those things that we did through the off season, we've had to replicate again in the summer. And actually, we'll kind of have a capstone event on the 18th where we do some really cool stuff that'll be a little bit more out of their comfort zone, because now we have our team. Now we have our team, and that's the unique thing about college football now, right? You don't really have your team until summer starts.
Yeah, when we also talked to them yesterday about the charity softball game y'all participated in with the local law enforcement.
That was a blast.
Really cool to see that, and especially because when you're trying to come into a program, you want the community to buy in to the program. Why was that so important for you to take part in, to get out into the local community, but also just get to know the local law enforcement and pay thanks to them?
Yeah, I think building a bridge, I think, is important. One of our key staffers is a guy named Todd Renwick, who's actually the UPD chief at the University of Nevada for 20 plus years, and so we have this awesome kind of synergy with law enforcement and all of our first responders. And so we were like, well, what better way? Let's get together and raise some money for a charity that's important for our law enforcement and first responders in Northern Nevada, and have a blast doing it. And shout out to the Aces; they were gracious hosts, and it was a lot of fun. And I don't know, it was a really cool event. It was very organic. It came together the right way, and so hopefully it's something we can build and grow on. But just another opportunity for us to touch base. And the one thing about Reno, Nevada, man, it is a community-oriented place. You give back in that community, and the more you give, the more they give back to you. President Sandoval, when I first took the job, he said, if you hug this community, it's going to hug you back. And I haven't forgot that. That's
really cool. We asked the guys who the MVP was of that baseball game. I'm going to ask you, who do you think it was?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's tight. It's tight. Baylor Horning or Chubba Purdy, one of those two for sure.
Purdy was the one they said. They said by and large, Chubba Purdy. That was it.
They said he could be a two-sport athlete at Nevada if need be, if they needed someone to be on the baseball diamond, and Chubba Purdy and what he did. Speaking of Chubba Purdy, he's assuming in the mix for at your quarterback battle and identifying who's going to be the leader of your offense. Brendan Lewis, A.J. Bianco, obviously Purdy's a name that people know, having been at Florida State, Nebraska. This guy coming to your place, what value does he add to that competition? And ultimately, if he is tasked with running the offense, you know, what does he bring to the table?
Yeah, I think he and Brendan actually have a really similar skill set. They're pretty similar athletes. They both throw the ball really, really well. Good decision makers, high football IQ, very athletic. And so I think we're going to have a very tight competition. It was a little bit janky because Chubba was coming off an injury after he transferred to Nebraska and really didn't get to fully participate in spring ball. And so Brendan kind of walked off. He was the leader in the clubhouse just based on that, the number of reps that he had and how he had performed in the spring. And AJ actually had a really good spring game too. And so I think there's those guys, and there's a guy that nobody really talks about, but I think I know he's going to have to play football for us because he's so athletic. And a kid named Anthony Grigsby, who's a transfer quarterback from College of San Mateo.
Okay.
And so I think you're going to see a lot of different guys, especially early on. Remember, I talked about that preseason. Yeah. Who are we? What do we do well? And how do we continue to improve week to week? And part of that's going to be identifying our key playmakers on offense, defense, and special teams.
One of the guys that can really help your quarterbacks will be Sean Dollars. He led the team in carries, over 150, over 500 yards rushing, scored 6 touchdowns last season. In what ways will he help those quarterbacks as they kind of get their feet underneath them and running the offense as a guy behind him that can run the football?
Yeah, Sean is a guy that's really maybe the most impressive to me, because I think he had every reason to be very resistant through the coaching change, and I've seen a lot of maturity out of that. You know, young man. And I think he's not only going to be a bell cow for us in terms of running the football, I also think he's going to be a really good leader in our locker room. And I've already seen that. And so we've got some really good maturity in that group. Sean is one. Transfer from Boston College, Patrick Garwell is another. We've got another transfer from the University of Texas, Savion Red, who I think is a dynamic player, played a lot of Wildcat for us at Texas. And so it's going to be an interesting dynamic. Ashton Hayes, a local kid, this guy can fly. Is dynamic with the ball in his hand. Got hurt in the Kansas game last year, and so he didn't, or I think it was actually the Texas State game, so he didn't get to play a lot. But yeah, I feel really good about the depth in our running back room.
Cortez Braham Jr., a guy out wide that I have to imagine is going to be a big piece of this offense, the transfer from West Virginia. What about him made you think, yeah, he'd really fit in with this group?
Yeah, he just has great energy. And
Yeah.
you guys probably felt that.
Yeah,
right?
We
absolutely,
saw
we
it,
did.
we felt it,
Right?
we loved it yesterday.
And I think he's authentic. I think he's truly appreciative. He's a guy that's kind of made the rounds. You know, he's done the Group of 5, Power 5, back to Group of 5 thing. And he is super appreciative of the opportunity that he has at Nevada. He is a good worker. He's mature. And I love, like, he makes you feel good being around him, like he's got that juice, and you got to love that. And so he's been a critical aspect for us. He's really taken a lot of our younger receivers under his wing. This is how you work. There's a guy that just transferred from Tarleton State, actually started his career with me at Montana State, named Jalen Smith. He calls him Jay Smitty, so everybody's probably going, who's Jay Smitty? But he's a guy that is a really dynamic football player. And those two guys on the edge, I think, give us pieces that are appropriate to be competitive in this league.
Well, another player we talked to yesterday, Henry Kahifofo, and we were ecstatic to talk to him. Your players that we spoke to were great. And he's a guy who was at Nevada, transferred to Cal, now back.
Yeah.
Being able to see the journey that he's been on, knowing the value that is in this Nevada football program, and wanting to play for you means what?
Makes me know that I've walked the path the right way. I think one of the main reasons that he's here is because I coached one of his cousins at Montana State who went through a lot of tough times, including his father passing away, and we were always there to support him. And at the end of the day, when you have those individual connections and those relationships, and a young man can say, no, Taylor told me, he said, you stay with Coach Choate. He's going to take care of you and your family. And to know that he put that trust in us, and he's going to be a really, really good football player in this league. He was a 275-pound interior D lineman at Cal, had to sit out a year, may get a year back based on some of the new NCAA rules, and has totally transformed his body. I've seen football at the highest level, as we've talked about. This guy's a dynamic player. He can play, and he's going to be a problem in this league, especially for offensive tackles.
Played on both sides of the ball, too. Spent some time as a tight end,
Oh,
so he's very well-rounded.
He's been lobbying me, I know. We might have a package, a little goal line stuff for him.
There you go. When I think of Nevada defense over the last couple of years, the guy that usually rises to the top, Drew Watts, can be a wrecker, forced 4 fumbles. Is he going to be one of your guys that you lean upon, not only to be a leader, but a playmaker? He was one of the big playmakers on that defense this year.
Yeah, I think that, through the middle of our defense, I've been really impressed with Drew's instinctive ability as a player. Very knowledgeable, high football IQ. Challenged him to kind of really build his body over the offseason, and he's done a great job of that. And so I'm excited to see him. I think that combination of Caden Johnson and Henry on the edge, and the combination of a guy with an experience level and the playmaking ability of Drew with Naki, who's like, this guy's a physical force now. He's a tough player. Those two guys in the interior of our defense. And then, in the back end, I actually think that we're a little underrated in the secondary. I mean, I think we've got a really, really talented group in the back end. Mike Coates coming back, and Keaton Crawford. There's Aiden Seule is a kid that has really impressed me during my time there. And so I like our defense. I really do. I think talent-wise, we're capable of having a really, really good squad on that side.
Having talent is one thing. Coaching up talent is another. One of your first tasks when you took the job was to get a staff that believes in what you believe, and maybe in some ways can challenge you. But one thing I do know is you have a staff that has coached at a very high level, won at a high level, been a coordinator at high levels. What are some of the things that you valued when you were putting your staff together to launch a winner at Nevada?
Yeah, familiarity and trust are the top two things for me. I think people knowing how I operate is going to create synergy and make us be able to move faster. I don't have to explain everything that I say. People, when they hear that certain tone, they know what's up and what time it is.
I've heard that tone from a few people. I know what you're talking about.
And so that's really important. And I was able to put together a group that I've, guys that I think there's only one guy on our staff that I haven't either coached, worked with, or they've worked under me. And so that familiarity and trust is there and present.
Huge.
And guys, again, that have been winners and been places that know how to not shy away from recruiting battles and challenge good players, because that's what good players expect. And not try to be their buddy, be their mentor and their coach.
Coach, one last note on a player that I really wanted to highlight. Keaton Crawford comes with you from Texas, had a great career down for the Longhorns. What is your relationship like with him? Why was it important for you that he was in this program?
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing Keaton up. I talked a little bit about how impressed I was with Sean Dollar's maturity. Keaton was one of the best special teams players in the country for the last 2 years at the University of Texas, and played significant downs for us. I mean, he had a huge interception in the Big 12 championship game, and I think he had another pick against Alabama in that game. But he wasn't an every down player on defense, and I think the opportunity to come somewhere where he can be the bell cow and kind of control the back end, grow his body of work as an every down player, and grow as a leader and as a person, and he has done that. I mean, this guy he's not an overly vocal guy, but he's very confident, and his leadership has just exploded over the last 6 months. And so I'm super, super proud of him. And I do think, like, when you look at the layers of our defense and you go, okay, Henry, I think he's a guy that is as good as any. I've watched enough tape on the Mountain West. I know what this thing is, all right? And I think I have a pretty good eye over 30 years of doing this. The second level of the defense with guys like Drew and Naki, I think we're right in the mix there. We've got enough talent there. And then you look at a guy like Keaton and Mike Coates on the back end, and Aiden Seuli and Keyshawn Cobb, another transfer that we have from Buffalo. We've got enough talent. How are we going to play? And like I tell everybody, like, I'm not going to be afraid to bring it. Like, nobody expects anything anyway. So we're a dangerous outfit.
I love it.
We are a dangerous outfit, and like I said, I mean, it's not just the launch, but we're going to let it rip. Every fourth down, you better look out. We're going to let it rip.
I think it's cool when you see a player like Keaton make the move to come to Nevada with you, and it says a lot to the players that decided to stay and the new ones that are coming in. This guy who had a great career at Texas is following you. And I think they talked to us yesterday just about, the player-coach relationship, the player's first coach that you are. You see that when players follow coaches, and I think that's really cool. But also, you had a smile on your face, and I love when I see coaches get genuinely so excited about players, and I definitely saw that on your face with Keaton.
No doubt.
Well, you'll let it rip as soon as anyone in college football. You got a week 0 matchup against an ACC team. Did I get that right?
Yeah. They're going to be preseason. I'm guessing somewhere around 15 to 17. So Rhett's done a great job of building that thing down there. And I mean, it's, as we talked about earlier, the Mountain West, I mean, nobody in this conference shies away from playing an aggressive schedule. Yeah. And I think that there's sometimes been retractors about, well, you look at a Liberty who didn't really play anybody, and they were able to get into that New Year's Six bowl game slot. And at the end of the day, man, you got to play somebody sometime. Yeah. And so, that's going to be an exciting game. I think it's awesome for our fan base. We get 3, really, really competitive games in that stadium, and starting off with SMU and, our non-conference schedule. We got 5 games because we're playing the 13th game. We're going to Hawaii and playing that 0-week game, so we'll get an extra bye. We need to play football. It's been a while since Nevada's played in the postseason, and so, hey, these more games means more opportunities for us to improve. And, I start looking down there and I go 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 4 games in November. They're all competitive and they're all going to be meaningful.
Well, we love it, and we look forward to seeing you guys get out there and let it rip and showcase some of that talent that we don't know about yet, but I know we'll know here real soon because Nevada football is in the right hands with Jeff Choate. I appreciate your time, appreciate your energy, and best of luck to you in week 0 against the Mustangs.
Appreciate it. Go Pack.
Awesome. Well, like we've been saying all day, we've got lots more to go here at 2024 Mountain West Football Media Days. Coming up next, we will hear from the new interim head coach for the Utah State Aggies, Nate Dreiling. He will be talking with us. We got to get a little taste of what the Aggies are going to be like this year with Spencer and Ike, who we spoke to yesterday. But don't go anywhere. We've got lots more coming up for you live right here on the Mountain West Network.